without further ado, this is Britta being Britta, and I hope it's going to be in English.
Well, the thing with it being in English is really a good thing. So if you hear the word mobile somewhere in the presentation, just translate it for yourself into mobile, right? Because we Germans call those things mobile. You spell it exactly the same as you spell mobile. So if I fall back to that one, my husband was laughing his butt off. So yeah. So if you start laughing, I noticed I did it wrong. So, yeah, easy for Hans. I had now 8 months time to think about what the heck I'm going to present. And I cheated a little bit on him because knowing it's a straw sort topic, but I was like, yeah, you know what, I have some other stuff it's really fun to do lately. So a little bit of a combination here. Mobiles and wooden quilts. The wooden quilts are not that much on the scrollsaw side. So, but to get us all in the right mood, I found a rather nice quote that gave me a really good idea what many of us are about. Because yes, some of us are real master woodworkers, no point. I'm not. I think the 2 times I've been standing here before, I told you, I cannot scroll any better than you, most likely worse. I will never make it to Hans's capability on the scroll side. But I have just different ideas, right? So if you look at this, the desire to create is one of the deepest yearnings of the human soul. No matter our talents, education, backgrounds, or abilities, we each have an inherent wish to create something that did not exist before. Does that ring any bell with you? There is something like, yeah, create something out of something else. Make something, not just use something, make it. You don't need money, position, or influence in order to create something of substance or beauty. Creation brings satisfaction and fulfillment. I don't think we would do woodworking, gorgeous things out there if we wouldn't be satisfied afterwards, right? You get something for it. You just do it for that. We develop ourselves and others when we take organized matter into our hands and mold it into something of beauty. Organized matter, I translated that into wood in this case and said, yep, that one fits pretty well. The gentleman's name who came up with this is Dieter F. Uchtdorf. Yes, he is German, hence the last name. So but I said, you know what, that really rang a bell because you create something, really simple things, right? What is this here? Something simple found out there and you make something different out of it. It's really for the fun of it. So, mobiles, hot air balloons, Halloween. Then we're going to talk a little bit about connection styles, how you do that, and some thoughts on how you do the hanging thingy setup. I didn't really know what right word is for that, so hanging thingy is going to come up more often tonight. And then we're going to talk about wooden quilts. And in a case I have still a lot of time left at that point in time, we might talk about that little star that's hanging on the side there. That's my, okay, if the presentation is too short, let's talk about this one. Mobile, a decoration with parts that hang down and move in the air. Well, I thought that was awfully simple. Something that hangs and moves. Okay. I found a second source. Mobile, a kinetic sculpture. And I'm sure there's a different way of pronouncing that, but for me it was kinetic. Principle of equilibrium. There's something about this. Number of rods. Well, one, not that many in this case. Weighted objects, potentially on further rods. Each rod hangs from only one string, and I think this is the most important piece here. It's one string, because this is the only way it allows it to move, right? You want movement, you don't want this to be static. It balances, parts hang freely, and they don't bang into each other. So, if you look at this little guy here, it's not the idea that you bling, 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 break. No. Well, right now it's blinking because I moved it heavily, but it needs to swing freely in the wind. So, how did I come up with that idea? You see the word nursery there? Yeah, my little sister got a baby, so you know you get some inspiration out of that one. So it's like, let's do something for her. What did I use as supplies? I had a pattern. I used plywood. simple, ordinary plywood, literally leftovers I had hanging around. Paint and spray lacquer, because I kept it simple. This is indoor use only, so it's not poly, it's literally a lacquer. But few nurseries are really outside, so I thought that would be fine. You need a string, you need glue and a toothpick. So the toothpick would work. So I'll show you later what you do with a string, which is pretty obvious, but what you do with a toothpick. Well, first step, create a pattern. Or find something. I think there are pattern mobiles out there, even with hot air balloons, but I'm more on the how can I do this myself idea. And Google Image is your friend. Hot balloon mobiles. As you can see, this one is made out of fabric. I think it's felt. I like the colors. This is the direction to go. And from there, I developed a pattern. Transfer it to the scroll, make it transferable, put it onto the plywood. I'm not going to go into depth and knowledge how to do that, you all know that. Put the blue painter's tape or some contact paper down, spray glue, put the paper on it, wrap it with, no, I didn't even wrap it because some of these patterns are really not that difficult, not much to cut on. And get them done. Sand is needed. I do like, especially if you think nursery, you want the corners nicely rounded. You don't want it looking rough because this is a more sophisticated or more finished way. This obviously is a little bit less on the polished side. You have to drill connection points, and we will go into far more depth on that one. Paint it, finish it. Plan the layout. Obviously, I have thought about it before, but you really start thinking, where is each single piece going to go? How long are those little strings going to be? And assemble. Balance really helps. Well, let's start with the pattern. This piece came from Google Images. I have no idea what it was for, but it was out there as a picture, and I said, you know what, I like the shape. Before I start drawing those by hand and making them spherical, or what's the opposite of round thingies, but kind of curved thingies, let's take the pattern that's out there. So it's a mix between Google Images, PowerPoint, and some ideas on my own. The little clouds, Google Images. Just Google Clouds, found one with a pleasant shape. If you look at them, they are all kind of the same, just different size. If you have any questions, feel free to interrupt me mid-sentence, that's totally fine. Or if I use a word that doesn't sound like English, interrupt me and tell me, and I'm going to try to find the right word. So, through the scrolling process, as I said earlier, the blue painter's tape, pattern glued to it, scrolls through it, work in progress. As you can see here, everything is scrolled out, the pattern is partially attached. And then drilling some of the holes. These are the clouds. So I drilled pretty much in each cloud a hole in the top, only in the top at this point, to make sure I have a connection point. Doing so, don't kill me, boss, I'm going to go back. Doing so, I tried to find somewhat the balancing point for this cloud on its own. Right? Because the whole idea of a mobile is that it's balanced. As a sample, look at this thing here. It's obviously not balanced. Plus, just by that alone, it looks pretty ugly. Right? You want it balanced. So trying to find some.
Sorry.
So, painting. I think next time I ask you to do that for me. My gut feeling is you're going to do a lot better than I did. I can scroll better than I can paint. Luckily, those little balloons are pretty small. So, nothing magic about it. As you can see here, these are those paints from Hobby Lobby, what's the other stores? Michael's, exactly. It's between somewhere $79 and $1.20 for the little bottle, depending how many coupons you have, I guess. So really nothing special about it. And mix it up, and I usually put a little bit of water into it to thin them because they seem to be awfully thick for my taste. But that might be a reason too, because they're were not new. So after a couple of years, I guess they start drying out. Very sophisticated drying station. Because remember, I was drilling some holes into the tops. It was the same what I did with the little clouds I did to the balloons. There's a hole in the top. And if you stick them upside down, you can put a toothpick into it. And yeah, a piece of old wood. Stick them in and you have a nice drying station because you obviously don't want to touch them. Same thing then for using the spray lacquer afterwards. That was a way of getting them dried. Well, that wasn't a spray lacquer, sorry. This is the white spray paint for the clouds. It was a lot easier than painting them by hand. So I said next time I'm going to come to you. Really going to be better. So simple, can be done by hand.
You spray paint those?
The clouds I spray paint.
The cover part of it spray
The clouds are spray painted, the balloons are hand painted.
from the hand.
Yeah, that's easier. They are so small. No, but the clouds were where I had this white spray paint sitting around, like, ooh, because I had thought about doing it by hand and then like, that's so much faster. And so much more even looking afterwards. So, clouds spray painted, the balloons are hand painted. And then this really was a fun start. Trying to figure out how do you want this laid out. And to give you some samples here, you can put the big cloud obviously on top, that was the simple part. Then align clouds, align balloons. Didn't do it, at least not for me. I turned my world upside down and put the clouds below the balloons. Really didn't do the trick for me either. I mean, taste is different. This is just, I didn't like it. Some people say, hey, this is exactly what I was looking for. Great, do it. This is, as you look at this,
Not me.
Not me.
That's a good point about it.
this used all the clouds I have, I think, and I figured this still don't, somehow I don't like it. So if you look at this one down here, it looks pretty similar, I think, to what's hanging here as a final version. So that's where I ended up with. What did I think about? That's really aesthetics, means how balanced does this look? Because this didn't look balanced to me. This looked to me like lined up. That's not the idea, right? You want it moving, you want the white and the colors mixed. Really getting an idea for it. Remember from the definition, the pieces are not supposed to touch, because then the free-flowing thing goes away. They bang into each other constantly because the free flow is gone. So they have to have enough distance. And obviously balance means I would not take everything heavily on the left side, because then that whole thing would get upside down, or I would need to take the hook on the top piece somewhere here to counterbalance. It's doable if you want to do it intentionally, because you obviously can create big kinetic structure in the beginning. I mean, you can create totally out of balance looking items if you just post the weights at the right positions. But you really have to figure the weights out and really have to make sure that the counterbalance is always there, that the levers and the weight really provide what you want. In my case, I wanted a pretty straightforward cloud on top, not a slightly hanging, sophisticated cloud that comes with, I don't know what. So that worked out for me. Now, I settled on, I know what I want now. Then the interesting part starts. How do I get it there? Because it looks great if you have the loose pieces on a table. But what you really need to do is you need starting to put the stuff together to figure out if your balance really works. I don't know if you can see this up here, but go on. Well, there, and there, equally there and over here. It's tape. Because I put the strings in, and in this case you can barely see them, I hope, that's the intent. And I taped them to the cloud. So I needed to figure out if this really is balancing. Optical was like, yeah, that should work, but yeah, should work is not good enough. You really want it straight, because you don't want it and tilted one or the other way. Do I get a new battery? So, and that's where the fun part comes to. We have string, And for that mobile, I wanted to look somewhat sophisticated. I mean, you can see the difference with the rope on top of the other one. A very thin one where you really barely can see the string. I hope from the back row that you have a hard time seeing that they're hanging on something. 0.2 millimeter, that stuff I think, which comes Amazon, I don't know, a couple of bucks a roll for 200 yards, I believe, or 100 meters or something like that. Rather cheap, strong enough, strong enough for something like that. Still easy left to handle because you can make knots, you can find it. The stuff comes in thinner. I have one roll that is, I think, 0.03. Boy, I think I'm pretty good with my hands. That's just annoyingly thin, and it's so flexible, and it wiggles around everywhere. I gave up after short. I said, you know what, I go with a little thicker one. Thank you very much. As you can see too, there's a toothpick, right? The toothpick was not just for the paint drying stuff. There's a reason we have a toothpick here. And some Gorilla Glue. I will show you in a moment how it's done. So this is the, I will show you how to connect something. If you look, and I think thus you can see it from there, you cannot really see how this cloud is connected on top. You cannot see a hook here. Here you can see there's something, right? There's a little metal hook. Obviously you can see a big knot here. But the idea here was I want them free-flowing in the air as clouds do. So now I need you somewhere. Is that a spot where you can? Toothpicks, right? This is my extra large toothpick for the demo. Because I thought if I really bring a toothpick, I can't see it, I need my reading glasses doing it, and you can't see anything on camera. So I found a round pencil. Envision, this is our hot air balloon. This is the top of our hot air balloon. There is the hole. Right, I said I drilled hanging holes in each of those. What did I lose my cloud? There's a little tiny hole in there. This is our little tiny hole, only that this fits into the pencil, this did fit the toothpick. Everybody with me? So, I stick this in there at some point, it's full. For every turn I hear jam chucks, chuck jams, jam chucks, yeah, that's what you call them. Jam chucks, so same idea. This is our invisible string. If I use invisible string, you couldn't see it right now. So, push that little string in there. Push my toothpick in it, and that would hold. Right? So, at the end, if you try this out with your hole and your toothpick, you figure out, okay, how deep roughly does the toothpick go in there? Obviously, you don't want a hole that has a larger diameter. That word, my fear, I guess, than your toothpick, because then it's not going to hold, it's not bang, it's just going to be floating around. So in this case, and you cannot see this I believe, but I marked this on this little pencil already, and I even cheated, I already pre-drilled my little pencil as well, because I didn't want to do a demonstration how to break a pencil. That thing falls to the ground, somebody tells me where it's going, okay? Yes, thank you. So, obviously, with a toothpick, that's why the scissors are in the picture. Just take the scissors and cut off the top. This is my safety moment for this presentation. Don't be me when you do that. After having those tips of the toothpicks flying through the living room a couple of times, I thought, dang it. I thought, oh, I'm smarter than that. I take my scissors, take my toothpick in the hand, and do it in my hand. If you do not think about how long your scissors are, you will cut your fingers with the tip of the scissors. And you will really think you're pretty much the stupidest person out there. So don't do it my way. I did it only once anyway. Afterwards I was able to keep the scissors away from my fingers. So, but joke aside, it's normally really easy unless you really do it stupid. So, hole, tip of your toothpick, string, glue. I simply used super glue because I had no nerve to wait for those little holes. They are itty bitty tiny. You really need a tiny bit, not much. So from that perspective, that stuff worked amazingly well, I have to say. And the tip didn't clog, which I don't know, somehow I'm good with this stuff clogging up very quickly, and I usually use maybe a tenth of a bottle, and then I have a stuffed bottle and can't get anything out of it anymore. Let's see if I'm fast enough right now. So same idea, get some glue into it, get the end of your string into it. In this case it was a little bit more sophisticated, but fact is, and you don't see it. So the whole idea here is to have a connection, and let me close that before I say myself. To get a connection that is pretty much invisible. And besides that the hole wasn't in the center, I mean obviously with this size it gets kind of tilted, but with these small holes and literally the toothpick size, it's straight on. It's really easy to do. I have to say I liked it because I did not want to use a hook, I didn't want to use a knot or anything majorly visible there. So that was the idea of how do I hide this string the best. The idea is not mine, the demo is mine, but the idea is somewhere years ago before, and it just came to me when I was trying to figure out how to do it with this one. So I don't have any rights on that idea, but I thought it was a pretty good way of doing it. And I can use this one again because I just had to show you. So much. Any questions to the hot air balloons?
Okay, what if you drill a hole and you hang the balloon and when you get it together, all of a sudden the cloud's crooked?
Well, no, you don't. That's at least not with this one. With that one, you might because you can't see those holes in the first place. But that's the part where you have to really mock it up before. When you do this piece here, again, this is all mocked up. There are no holes in that big cloud on the bottom yet. It's all trying to figure out, okay, maybe a quarter of an inch or an eighth of an inch further to that side, maybe over there, until it's hanging balanced.
So you're using tape or something?
This is just ordinary, this clear tape that you...
Scotch tape.
Scotch tape, thanks. So, and yeah, it's really try and error, but it works pretty well. And same thing too, if you do like a combination where you have two in line, this one is simple, you're right, there's pretty much center. I mean, the way they are shaped, they're easy. And you first center this under that, so to find where is this piece in itself centered and have it balanced. Then you go to the next one up. Like this little one is pretty straight in the middle of the whole cloud. But it's really, when you start adjusting this, mock it up and again until you have the balance. And it will fall down because the tape didn't really hold. That's why you do it over your table and not over a yard of ground or something. You really just, okay, drop one piece, glue it back with a sticky again and again until you mark the points where you say, okay, this is the right one. Then you drill the holes. And don't forget at that point, this hole wasn't drilled yet. So when I had all the strings and everything hanging on it, I started, okay, it's kind of obvious where the rough area is, but then you start, okay, let's balance this out with exactly the same idea. Take a piece of string, well, in this case I used painter's tape, I believe, because it needed to be a little bit stronger, and mock up what is the exact spot to have it balanced. So it's really, it's not a put it all together and then like, oops, that didn't work. This is literally, you have to do the balancing before. Or in this case, if I had really a wrong hole in there, drill a second hole and just put a little paint on the first one and cover it up.
You ever trim or sand kind of fine tune?
This one, no.
I didn't say this one, I said everything.
Yes. I mean, how would you balance this one? You know what, man, the wood isn't dry yet. So let's assume that this side will get a little bit lighter over time because this dries faster than this one. How would you balance this one? Give me a suggestion, how would you balance it?
Add weights to it.
Get your saw.
Let's cut 6 slices of whatever. With this one you will never see it, because it just, I mean, if this is a 1/4 inch shorter than it is now, who knows?
But you would do that after it dried, though. I thought you meant to prevent it too.
Oh, well, you can see, I mean, if you see it, let's go there. I showed you how that one was made, so we come exactly to how to balance it, and you will see how I got there.
Okay.
So how did I came up with this idea? Well, I had said I'd do a presentation, right? So I wanted to make this one. I said, okay, I'm going to do mobiles, sorry. I had to come up with something else, right? Just one is not really enough to show to you folks. So, and I had seen at some point, and I think last year I showed you the same magazine, or it's the same type, Feinschnitt Kreativ. It's still German, still has cute patterns in there. And they had this little, I don't know, you see that there's a picture in the presentation too, in there. And I like the figures, but I would not make something like that for myself. But I thought the figures were pretty cute. Kind of Halloweenish, but cute Halloweenish, not scary. So, and somehow, don't ask me why, when I was thinking about this piece of wood, I thought about these little figures. They are I think the original size is roughly an inch and a half. They grew a little on my white. So I took this as an idea. Plywood, bigger one, but again, stuff that was just laying around. A tree branch. Stain, spray poly, so it can at least partially stay outside. And front porch, so when it's covered, it should survive for a while. String and rope, eye-shaped screw hooks, and a metal rod. Well, you can guess where that piece of wood came from. There's a very nice park in Milton, and there was a storm. And there was a rather large tree that decided he was having it. So it fell down. I thought, well, I can't just let that wood sit there. So I'm one of those strange people that at 6:30 in the morning with a large handsaw in my backpack walks the dogs in a park. And there's beside me nobody there. I'm not going to say what park it was because I assume that it's not an issue, but I have no idea if you're allowed to take a piece of wood, but I did. Because I thought it's a pity to have it sitting there when you can make something out of it and use it for something else. And here you can see it's exactly the page I just showed you. I like the figures. Here's the owl. One of those pumpkins. There are the other 3 pumpkins, and somewhere there's a cat here. That was the whole branch. So it was bigger. I like bigger. I was waiting for our HOA to tell us that stuff like that is not allowed to be laying around in our front yard. Somehow I managed to get it out there before they complained. What did I do with the patterns? In all fairness, my idea was scan them and enlarge them. My scanner decided that's not going to happen. So mobile technology got me to the idea, well, take a picture and enlarge those. That did work. So I took literally pictures of the original pattern and just PowerPoint again and just pulled it up because, I mean, the shapes are simple. There's nothing magic to this shapes. They're easy scrolled. I mean, yeah, George, 5 minutes and you're done with all of them. It's far easier than your entire work. But is that, well, you don't have the perfect line. You don't need this hairline that Word can create. You just need a line and get it done. Worked pretty well. Same idea, transferred to wood. So I had contact paper, spray glue, put them onto it. Sand, not much sanding, fortunately. Drill connection holes, stain finish, cut the branch down, then the layout. Do the metal rod, and I'll show you that later, and assemble and balance. That's really where the fun part comes, so let me show you. Right, contact paper, that's the stuff, $1 a roll from
Dollar store.
Dollar store, yeah, exactly that one. At some point I had all key pieces cut out, and I still think they're, I just like the faces, they were so awfully cute. Stain, Minwax, I believe, got out of business with, I think, Home Depot, because they went with Lowe's or something like that. and they had the little tubes for like $3. But, oh yeah, I need some. So that was my color coordination. 3 different types of stain. Spray poly as a finish. In this case, while it will not survive rain for a long run when it's plywood, so I think I have to put epoxy on it if I wanted to do that. But if I hang it on a porch when it's not really out in the rain, I think it should do for a couple of seasons. So it's just gonna be fine. You need some protection on it. And a little hand drill in this case, or a little Dremel to drill the holes. In this case, drilling the holes, the idea too is you pretty much, you take this one, you get a good idea where that center point is, right? So you really have to balance only each single one out. And if you're a millimeter or an 1/8 of an inch to the right or to the left, ain't gonna make any difference. So, but you do it for each individual piece that is hanging, not for the kitten, because I think they're barely visible on these big pieces. While they are tiny, I did not want them on the balloons, because I think there they would have really stand out, which I didn't want. Here, that you show me where you see the hooks on the wood itself or on the branch. It's barely visible, so that's fine for it, because it's not supposed to look that polished.
Do you put a finish on the wood?
Yeah. I have, if you look closely, there's moss and all kind of stuff sitting on there. That, you know what, I'm not sure if finish is going to make this live longer or shorter, because what's going to break is either the cord, that's not the right rope, when you can put a new one in, or the pipe is going to go down far before the branch is going to go down. At least that's my logic. But you could put some poly spray on there. I think it would need to be a spray. I would not know how to do it with a paintbrush. I think that would collide with the idea of leaving all the stuff on there. It's intentionally on there. I did not want a clean piece of wood. I wanted this hangs in a tree, and it kind of looks like it's part of the tree, and there's literally a cat and an owl sitting out there. So, you can see we had some fun, or I had some fun with the mopping up, because this is obviously the branch. Those white strings there are all my test connections, because at the end here I put those on there after knowing where I wanted them and whatever, but I mopped the whole thing up with a lot of strings. And as you might remember, on the supply list I had a metal rod. That's where the cat is sitting on. So underneath that cat, right there, is a hole just straight down into the wood. And the cat has a hole in her bottom as well. And there is a metal rod in there to ensure she's staying there. Which means as well that needs to be on there before you start the balancing, because the metal rod has weight. And depending where you post that cat, if it's close over there, it has a shorter lever. If I set that cat there, it brings the whole thing further down. So it's really again, playing with the weights and playing around with it. Good thing here is, the hole for the rod you would not want to drill multiple times, but the little ones for the ice screw, whatever thingies, seriously, there were at least 2 that I had to drill multiple times, and not because I wanted to, but I had the hole, drilled it, grabbed my little screw, tried to get it in, kind of got screwed, and then I lost my hole. And with all the stuff that's on that branch, I couldn't find the holes anymore, so I drilled a new one. And nobody ever's going to find this hole, because I couldn't do that, and I knew there was one. So it's pretty simple. We found a toothpick.
I did clean it up.
Was that even a used one?
It was laying on the floor.
A used toothpick.
No, I cleaned it.
Okay. I think I'm sticking for now to my pencil too. Okay, so mock-up, right? Yes, what can you use a table saw for? Not a table saw, a band saw. It's an ideal point to hook up a cord and get your balancing done. Because this is my saw. Well, it's you have to find something where you can hang that thing on, and there was not much in the basement to do it from. Excuse me. So, as you can see, the one piece adjusted is the cat. Because of the metal rod, that you know that one is fixed and everything else is gonna balance that thing out. As you can see as well, it's everything but balanced right now. This is going down very literally here. Because there are 3 items attached with rough strings just to figure out where to post them. I said, yeah, okay, that's obviously not ideal. That didn't help either, because this one was really convinced that this owl is something to play with. Yeah, I'm not saying he brought me 2 mice for breakfast this morning, or like you're kidding me. So yeah, he really wanted to kill that owl, but okay, it didn't work. So as you can see here, my balancing got a lot better. One reason, and that's just between all of you and me, this is one hole just straight through, right? And I had this feeling from the get-go that might or might not work the way I thought it would. That might not work was right, because obviously this whole thing is not that balanced. So it was not going just this way, but it literally was going everywhere, but it wasn't hanging nicely. Nothing where you would have said, oh, this looks good. It was literally, it wasn't balanced, it was just flipping over and hanging there. But okay, that ain't working. And now, Buzz, can you go that close to it? To see my cheat point here? Right there, these are 2 staples. Because I had this one thing standing up there that, you know what, if you balance those, if you give that point and this point, there shouldn't be that much flipping over anymore. So I took the hand stapler, 2 staples in there with the cord to the wood. I don't think you can really see much of it. And I got exactly the effect that I wanted. It means I have this movement in this direction, but not a constant flipping around. You know which way I mean? Yeah, flipping around this angle. Because then it looks strange. Leaving it look very strange. Yeah, here tell me where the holes are. This is one of the areas where I lost 2, but like, I don't know what this little bird. And here are the tiny little hooks that I'm using that you can see on the pieces. And this was the test hanging in our front yard. Because the nice thing too, you know, you take the cord, you just wrap it up and throw it over a branch and have it hanging there. And I have to admit, I liked it. I was like, I fell more and more in love with it, seeing it hanging there. It's like, oh, this is cute. And did we talk about satisfaction of creating something? It was one of those moments where you know that was so simple, really. There's no magic to it. I mean, the shapes, it's not fretwork, right? It's simple. It's a branch out of the wood. I mean, material cost. I guess the eye hooks might have been the most expensive, or this cord, but a couple of bucks. This is, for most of you, this side of plywood would be scrap. For me, it's not. You know that already, but it's literally, there's no material value in there. I had fun making it, and I was like, you know what, there's no second one out there that looks like that. That's the part where I said, yep, winner for me. I'm happy with myself. And it will now end up at the silent auction of the Forsyth, no, the Humane Society of Forsyth County, to get some money in for the cats and dogs they're saving. So yeah, that was a fun one. Now, connection styles. A little bit more on the technicalities, how to connect things. I already showed you the idea of, well, let's start with what do you need to think about. The weight of your elements. Elements being those little pieces here. This kind of style with the toothpick, or what I showed you with the pencil, you might not want to do when each of your elements weighs 300, 400 grams. If you okay, for half a pound. Let's go to English measures here, because there's weight, right? You would be pulling on that thing, and that might not work out over time. You could easily use these hooks for something with weight, because they really hold very well. And if you add a drop of glue to it, I think you're not going to break it. But it's a consideration you have to do. What is the weight, depending on what connection style you use. The thickness. If you can't drill a hole into it, like straight down, because your sides won't be thick enough anymore to hold it, you have to find something where you can drill through. Just what depends what you want. Indoor, outdoor usage. This is indoor. The most wind it will get might come through a window, or a fan that's standing somewhere. This is supposed to be outdoor. So I had to think about, yeah, it's most likely not going to survive a storm, but it needs to survive a little bit more movement, a lot more banging around than this ever will experience. So you need to think about it, needs to hold for that. Obviously the style itself, more polished, definitely less polished. The strings you use, very thin, rather thick. Or, I mean, if you go and look at this, which we're now going to do, that would be